Okay, everyone, lots going on in Washington, D.C., especially here in Michigan always. And talking to someone I've had on the show before, Monica Yatooma, correct?
Correct.
Let's get the name right. And your organization is?
The Great Education Initiative.
Okay. And that sounds like what we want. We want Michigan to be better with education. And there's lots of different things we could talk about, and I'll touch on those. But I had you on before talking about Title IX.
Yep.
And President Biden had made some changes to Title IX, and Michigan school districts were trying to figure out what to do. Back before Trump became president, Title IX, basically President Biden, part of it that he had changed the definition of the word sex, kind of, right?
Correct.
In a way.
Yeah.
So school districts were dealing with trying to how to implement this and the wording and how not to get sued. It was so confusing.
Yes, they redefined the word sex to include gender identity is essentially what they did. And this is the new so like Title IX goes back to the 1970s. That's when it was originally made up. And then the new 2024 proposed rule, that's like the Biden rule that you're talking about right now, right? Redefining the word sex.
Yeah.
And we had like all these years of these last few years of this craziness of the trans era, right? So redefining sex to include gender identity. So if you're a biological male, but you identify as a female, they basically wanted to be able to say, okay, you can play in girls' sports, you can go into girls' locker rooms. And so that's why they wanted to redefine the word sex.
And certain school districts came out in big time in support of it. I know Rochester, Saline, one up north, not Grayling, Kalkaska, I think. But then others were Birmingham. Others were like, whoa, hold on, because a lot of their lawyers were probably telling them different things. I talked to one superintendent who said to me, he's like, I'm going to get sued either way. Like they were feeling weird about it. But now we have a new president, and the Trump administration, he's redefined again the Title IX, but he does it, and then the Department of Education carries it out, I believe. Correct? Is that how it works?
That's correct. The Department of Education that he's currently trying to abolish.
Exactly. And I'll ask you about that in a second too. President Trump issued an executive order titled Defending Women from Gender Ideology and Changing. So I guess the question now, it's pretty clear the changes. Are the school districts in Michigan now going to say, okay, now we have a definition of what this Title IX is? Are those school districts that were all in on Biden's definition, are they going to change and do it what it is now?
So in a perfect world, I'd like to say yes, and it's what we like to see. Unfortunately, I do think we're going to see some pushback. They're not going to be as excited and gung-ho about it as they were about the Biden ruling, right? The 2024 rule change. I sense just from talking to different school board members in different districts across the state, some schools are saying, we're not really going to mess with this. We're not going to announce a public policy. We're going to take this on a case-by-case basis just because they just feel like they're in such limbo and they don't want to be sued and they don't want to lose federal funding. But then you've got superintendents and school boards that literally operate like they're activists. And so now they're trying to find a workaround, right? Like calling it something else. All right, we can't use DEI anymore. Okay, 2024 Title IX rule change is gone. What can we do? So like one of the things I've heard is like, there are schools looking at something called communities in schools. And so that's just a program where we're shifting, blame away from the schools and trying to put it on a parent saying that, oh, well, kids aren't performing and need our support because they're not showing up to school and they don't have the support that they need at home. So now, unfortunately, I think we're going to start seeing them trying to find a way to still implement some of these 2024, rule changes, but maybe disguise it and call it something else. That's what I anticipate seeing, not in all the school districts, but I think we'll see it in at least a couple of handfuls of them.
And I reached out to 2 or 3 of those districts asking for a comment, ones who were out, very in support of President Biden's changes to Title IX, and not one of them have gotten back with me. Not a surprise, because school districts in my 25 years of being a journalist, they are usually the worst. There's some very good districts, though. There are good superintendents, but many of them hide from the media. They hide information, and it always comes back to get them in the end. Yeah. Will there also be maybe the potential to, is the other side maybe going to litigate this now? Because I know the other side was litigation before. Is this going to be another lawsuit, but on the other side?
It's always very possible. Even us at the Great Education Initiative, when we filed our federal Title IX lawsuit on behalf of Michigan students, we haven't dropped that lawsuit just because of this executive order. Because listen, if a new president comes in after Trump and it's not a conservative president that believes in this executive order, we're going to be starting all over again. So we're still pursuing our case federally. We want to see this, implemented or enshrined, into the Constitution, this executive order that he's signing. So I feel like that should be next steps. But you're definitely going to see a lot of litigation, I think. And especially here in Michigan, because don't forget, we might be okay right now with Title IX, but we still have Elliott Larson, unfortunately, here in Michigan.
That was a deal I was dealing with about a year ago in Bridgeport. I think it was Bridgeport Public Schools. Was it Bertrand? Bridgeport, one of the B's near me. They were, no, it was Bridgeport. They were an issue of a student transitioning, wanting to use the girls' bathroom, and the school district didn't know what to do. The student threatened to sue. The school district said, okay, you can use the bathroom. And then the girls were all upset. And then I asked the a superintendent, someone else off, a council member or a board member, and they said, well, we're just scared about being sued. We're going to be sued over there. We're going to be sued over there. And in limbo is what they said. They said, we're damned if we do. We're damned if we don't. But they blame Elliott Larson. They said that's because of the state law, that people didn't even know what they voted for when they voted for things.
Yes. Elliott Larson, similar to Title IX, not exactly the same, but they made an amendment to Elliott Larson. It's just a non-discrimination law, right? Which is fine. That's fair.
Absolutely.
But, yeah. Democrats amended it last year to add gender identity, right? So if you identify as the opposite gender, we can't stop you from using the bathroom that you identify with. So that's kind of where the difference is. So Title IX operates in the realm of sports and honestly, private spaces, right? Like the locker rooms. Yeah. But Elliott Larson is not really about sports. It's more about private spaces like bathrooms.
Yeah. Wow. And if that was to go to the Michigan Supreme Court, we know what the Michigan Supreme Court is right about now. So
yeah, we dropped the ball on that one in the last election, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a whole other show too, that people don't understand when they vote what maybe they're voting for.
Yeah.
Department of Education, is that an issue as well? Because it's not just Title IX, but there's other issues that the Department of Education and people don't understand. What's your take on the dismantling of or the elimination of the Department of Education? What's your take when people ask you? Because a lot of people don't understand it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking, oh my gosh, if we abolish the Department of Education, like where does that leave schools? Well, schools are still going to be fine, unless, of course, you're in a blue state, because then your Department of Education statewide is probably leaning blue, right? But that's something else. Let's just focus on abolishing the federal Department of Education. There's a lot of bloated bureaucracy. Over the years, there's been so much money funneled into these schools, and the only thing increasing, right, is the number of staff and personnel, and the bureaucracy is super bloated. But our kids are failing. They can't read. They can't do math. We score like we're one of the lowest nationally, right? If you look at scores, then if you go state by state, I mean, it's not great. Like, let's just take Michigan. We've been in the bottom half for a long time now. And even our kids, let's drill down a little deeper. Detroit kids, Flint kids, Pontiac kids, they're going to fourth grade, third grade, fourth grade, some of them fifth grade. They can't read. They can't write. They can't do math. So go ahead.
Throwing more money at it's not helping.
No, it's not doing anything. And it's just allowing for more corruption throughout the department. It's not helping the kids.
What is your answer when you tell people that? They're like, oh no, we're going to lose our special education, all these programs, my child, that'll all be cut. That's what I hear people say. But the thing is, I think that Trump says and others give it back to the states. Is that what it's about?
Yes, he wants to give it back to the states. And there is money to keep special ed programs. The schools would have to reprioritize and reallocate where the money is going, right? So, like, one of those things is going to be cutting the DEI department because that's coming from the top down. But there are other areas where these schools can cut money. You just have to reduce staff. Why are we putting all this money or all these monies towards staff, but not necessarily towards the students? I think if they reallocate where the money's going, we can figure out a solution for that really quickly.
So you're not, so I mean, a lot of people like Randy Weingarten, the teachers unions, a lot of them are scaring people like, no, if you eliminate the Department of Education, you're eliminating all these programs for your kids. Not true, right?
No, not true. Not true.
Yeah. And that's tough though, because saying, oh, getting rid of the Department of Ed, people don't understand. In the mainstream media, they don't dig in to tell people. So, I mean, if you see someone on the street and they say, how dare we get rid of the Department of Ed? How do you answer? What do you tell them?
Well, what I tell them is do your research. Trump making this move, what he's doing is he's forcing these school districts to be fiscally responsible. They still have millions and millions upon dollars. But like I said, they just have to reallocate it. They don't need to cut, like special ed programs or the programs that are actually needed. But there are programs within the budget, and there's a lot of, again, bloated bureaucracy that can easily be removed, and the kids wouldn't even feel it. If they put more money towards the kids and per pupil, then the kids would benefit.
And the last question I have to go along with that and to tie into what we had earlier, the DEI, the gender identity with the Department of Education becomes a lot of requirements and guidelines and things school districts have to do. That's getting in the way as well, correct?
Oh yeah, of course. Because we're so focused on social issues instead of just the basic issues like reading, writing, math, English, science, just the basics. We just need to focus on those. I don't think we need to focus on making sure that, a kid needs to, be comfortable in their body and if be comfortable saying, hey, if I'm born in the wrong body, that it's okay. Leave that at home. That's a personal issue. That's a medical issue. Let the parents deal with that. And teachers in schools focus on teaching.
Do you have a website for your organization?
We do. It's Great Education Initiative. It's www.greatei.org. And then I'm always posting about what's going on in the different schools too. It's just Monica Yatooma Official. You can find me on Facebook. Instagram is where I post the most, but also I have X as well. And what's the other one? TikTok.
For now, yeah, we'll see. Okay. Is this yours? Is this your website?
That's us.
Okay, so I'll put a link to this in the comments as well. And that was what I was about to ask. If people in Michigan feel like, down because Michigan is not, well, the powers that be in Michigan right now are not on board with a lot of these changes. What can they do? I'm assuming go to a site like yours or don't give up, right? Don't feel like
never ever give up because
don't leave Michigan. Some people are like, I want to leave Michigan. I'm like,
no, please don't, because we have no kids left in Michigan. We need families, and we need young families, and we need young couples to reproduce and have kids. And we need young conservative families that believe in God and, in the nuclear family. Like, we need all of that. Please don't leave and don't give up, because there's another election cycle coming. And listen, you can go to our website, www.greatei.org, sign up, become a member, because we've got all these different initiatives. We can point you in the right direction of which groups you can join.
Okay.
And all these different groups you can join. And then also we're starting a program where you pay a very, very small fee to be a monthly member. I think it's like maybe $5 or $10. Okay. And then come election cycle, when your group is ready and you're ready to put up your school board members, you're taking half of the money from that membership so that you're ready to go. And these school board members have support and the money they need to run their elections and their campaigns effectively. And that's done through our C4 arm, which is Great Education Action.
I'll put links out there. So I appreciate it. I'll get back with you, and good luck to all of us.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Dave. Always a pleasure.